Hi everyone, we are checking in at 45 of the 90 days of Trump's tariff pause to say, how are things going? I'm going to answer that for you, and more broadly, what is happening with the Trump regime? Okay, first let's start off with tariffs. So we had the so-called Liberation Day on April 2nd. Peter Navarro, the trade advisor for Trump, told us 90 deals in 90 days. And then Trump told Time Magazine at day 100 that he would have 200 deals done soon. Okay, so we are now halfway through the 90-day pause. Where are we? Let's take stock of where we actually are. We have 0 deals done. We have a framework with the UK. It is a framework. It is not a done deal. And then Trump also, because we basically had an embargo set up with China and retailers were warning him that their shelves were about to go bare, we have a pause, an additional pause with China and a lowering of his outrageous tariffs that basically, again, were an embargo. How many actually deals did we have done? 0. There are talks that we were close with Japan, that we were close with South Korea, with India. Nothing has been done. So Trump, flying back on his way back from the Middle East, told reporters that he was just going to decide, since if people weren't going to negotiate, he was just going to decide what their tariffs were going to be, which kind of is what he already did on Liberation Day. So I'm not sure that's a really great threat. But in the meantime, what else is happening? Well, thanks to us, there's all sorts of new alliances everywhere. The European Union and the UK got together, formed an alliance for defense and for trade, their biggest since Brexit. There's alliances between the UK and India, all sorts, and China is all over the place. Everyone is getting together but us. We're sort of the girl that didn't get invited to the dance. That's our Trump. But what's happening beyond that? What is going on now that we are beyond this first 100 days? Well, what else? Let's talk about the economy, other than the tariffs. What has happened? Well, Trump's big, beautiful deal, big, beautiful budget bill that was going to get passed, that's kind of not going so well. And why? Because Moody's just downgraded our debt. That didn't do so well for the U.S. exceptionalism, which we've been talking about. Rates have gone up. In other words, it's more expensive for us to borrow. It's less likely that capital will flow into U.S. debt when we become more risky. It's not really good when you have companies like Apple and Microsoft and other companies who have better debt ratings in the United States. Not all Trump's fault, but what pushed Moody's over the edge was the fact that the big, beautiful bill has a big trillions of deficit to add to in the coming years, because we have to cut programs like SNAP and Medicaid in order to pay for the billionaires to have their tax cut continued. That makes perfect sense, right? No, not so fast. So it's not going so well in Congress. And it doesn't help that we had this debt downgrade, that rates go up, because again, when our rates go up because our debt is, we don't have as good rating, it becomes more expensive, and that further exacerbates our deficit. It makes it more expensive for us to borrow in the future, etc., etc. So that's not going well. U.S. confidence, consumer confidence, came out this last week. Second lowest from University of Michigan in all their ratings. Home purchases are slowing. The consumer is having a hard time. So now what's Trump's new strategy? He's threatening corporations. Walmart said they're going to need to pass on costs because of Trump tariffs. And backing up, the whole purpose of these tariffs is to help American consumers and companies. Okay, so Trump didn't like that from Walmart, threatened Walmart. You can't pass on, you have to eat it. The companies have been eating it. That's why the PPI margin went down, but threatened them. And then he didn't like that Tim Cook, formerly known as Tim Apple, didn't come with him to Saudi Arabia, so he attacked him for that, and then attacked Apple for producing iPhones in India, where if they produce them in the United States, guess how much it's going to cost you to get an iPhone? $3,000. Who wants to pay $3,000 for an iPhone? So basically what Trump has done is create pain. And now all we're doing is divvying up who's going to suffer the pain, Walmart and Apple, or the consumers, or both. But that is coming. In addition to all of that, on the foreign policy front, what did Trump promise us on the campaign trail? He said within 24 hours, he would resolve the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Well, he had a long phone call with Putin yesterday that Putin seemed to like very much. And we ended up pretty much exactly where people told Trump we'd be. That Putin really doesn't want a deal. And that we have spent all this time, 3 months, 4 months, helping Putin just kick the can down the road and making him normalized. And now Trump is wiping his hands of that. He also hasn't gotten all the hostages out of Gaza either. That was another promise that all hell was going to break loose. He's wiped his hands clean of that one as well. So economy, foreign policy, and then there's immigration. The Supreme Court ruled against him on being able to use the Aliens Enemies Act, which is a 1798 act, as an excuse to deport Venezuelans who were housed in Texas to El Salvador. They said no. Kick that back to the appeals court. That had impact on multiple cases. Trump spent Saturday and Friday night hate tweeting the Supreme Court. But this is where you can tell when Trump is really off his game, because I've tracked him through the Weekly List project. You can find it Substack. You can find in my bio the Weekly List. I've tracked his broken norms during the first regime and now again. And this is the first week. First of all, this will be the slowest week of him breaking norms. He's just floundering right now. But as importantly, he's going back to some of his worst habits during the first regime when he was really, really failing. And that is to start hate tweeting celebrities. Like, you have enough time to tweet about Bruce Springsteen. Taylor Swift isn't hot. Like, someone get Trump a mirror. You are not exactly the one that should be telling anyone who's hot and who's not hot. And then he's after Beyonce and Oprah for supposedly being paid to endorse Kamala. This is what we're focused on right now. We have other problems. Like yesterday, Newark Airport went dark for the 4th time. Denver Airport has also lost communication with airplanes. 2 out of 313 airports in the United States have enough air traffic controllers. Oh, and did we mention he's shutting down FEMA? And storms started like last weekend and 27 people died. And he's also gutted the National Weather Service such that they had to stagger themselves within their office in preparing in Kentucky for these tornadoes coming, because otherwise no one was going to be in the office. These are some of the highlights of what Trump has done. And in his kakistocracy of cutting haphazardly federal agencies, putting the most incompetent people in charge of our federal agencies, and pretty much screwing up our economy that was formerly the envy of the world, that's where we are. So before you head off for Memorial Day, what should you be doing with your portfolio, or what are you thinking? We are still in the middle of this storm. We haven't even started to really feel the pain that is coming from tariffs. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, for those of you who follow Wall Street, who knows a thing or two, is warning that credit, in other words, loans, could start to sour. They're taking bigger reserves, that we are still at the risk of going into recession if we're not in one already. So don't think that we're on the other side of this. We're still in the middle of it. We're not even in it. We have 0 deals. So play it safe and make sure you're following what is really going on, not the spin. Have a good long weekend.